Good afternoon, Anne. How are you?
Hey Matt, I'm okay. How are you?
Yep. I know you're coming off the cold flu, whatever it is, RSV, whatever the flu variant type X is. There's always like a new variation
You
coming
got
out.
it. The death of the winter cold that's going around that everybody seems to be passing.
And my everyone I know got the flu shot, but they didn't. But like a new variation just came out of nowhere. And it's like, well, that wasn't part of the flu shot. So
Well, and what's weird is it just felt like a really, really, really bad cold, but then it had like all the fatigue and the body aches, but no fever. So it's like, at what point do you say, oh, it's the flu versus a cold? And who really cares? Because recovery is absolutely the same.
yeah. Well, so going with the idea of recovery, so we were just talking about this a little bit, is you got to get back into work, but when is the right moment?
Right.
Because I know you and I have different work ethics and how we grew up, right? So like I grew up actually very similar. I think when we talked about this, I grew up similar to you, where I do have to show up even if I feel sick, right? It's kind of the same thing with school, right? You're kind of sick as long as you're not like deathly sick. You go to school, you do homework, you still got everything's got to get done
We do
anyway.
that to our own kids, and I feel guilty as hell after I do. I like really analyze their energy level, and I just don't have the heart to send them, push them out the door to school to go perform for 7 hours when they feel like absolute garbage. I've definitely been on the fence of dipping my toe in both pools and saying, no, we go to school. Even, you're not on your deathbed, we go to school. And then at the same time being the mom that's like, I'm going to give you a mental health day because I can sense that you need that break and you stay home. So it's like, I,
But we might just be a different. Maybe this is how society moves forward, and old things die off. Because when I grew up, that helped with a lot of ability with perseverance. So like
yes.
when you work with companies, right? You say you're losing a bunch of money, and you're losing a bunch of money for like, I don't know, let's just say 4 months straight, right? And you have a runway or something's bad going to happen eventually. You can't just be like the fourth month on the 21st day, you're going to be like, today just, I just don't feel like working today. I'll try to do it tomorrow. Your
Yeah.
company's bleeding money, right? So there's that piece of like, you have to get over whatever mental issue you have, because if you don't, and you don't start the engine now, the thing's going to crash.
Right.
But then the other end, you have situations where, you're not going to be productive. So what is the point of trying to fight it? Isn't it easier to align everything? And I think both have like pros and cons, right? If you fight through it, you can build momentum, and the momentum stays for a long time.
Yeah.
If you don't fight through it, you can improve your recovery, which thus the next day or the next situation, when you're ready, you can really go off even stronger than doing the hard start. So it's like kind of soft start and hard start situation.
Matt, I think
Um,
a lot of that is kind of the concept around you can force yourself to get through a to-do list when the energy isn't present. And it might take you 10 times as long, right? Even 2 times as long. But when you trust yourself and you have a knowing that you will have a time end soon, that to-do list will get done when you need it to get done, and the energy and the alignment is right, you could do that list maybe 100 times faster than if you weren't actually showing up. It's kind of a hard concept to say, but it's like the working in your energy. So knowing where your energy is meant to pull, not doing something, procrastinating for weeks and weeks, and then all of a sudden that thing falling through, not being meant for you in the first place. Or, doing something on the right day that you send that deliverable over and the person goes, it was perfect that you sent this today of all days, and here's why. So I'm a really big fan of, obviously, leading with intuition, but working intuitively as well. I like what you just said at the beginning of this before we started recording, was why, what is the impact if you're tired and coming out of this like cold cave that I've been in for several days? What is the impact? And it was a bit of both sides that we're talking about. One is that grit and that perseverance and getting through the to-do list, because I've been out and lost 2.5 full days of work that I anticipated on doing and completing and planning. And I still haven't even been in my inbox to organize all of the chaos that literally I just had to disappear from. But at the same time, this was on my list. This was on my calendar, on my agenda. And there's the little girl in me that was raised that we show up if we can. We show up no matter what with that grit and that perseverance. But like you said, at what cost? And I think there's a little of both. I do agree. It's just so much more gray than black and white. You have to decide where you can put your energy, and you still have to work intuitively with energy. And I looked at my calendar last night and said, that's why I moved this recording to the afternoon. I said, if I can get myself through and I am feeling better and starting to recover and crawl out of this, could I do this one thing tomorrow? And I think that was a question I asked myself to show up. And then I said, okay, we're either going to show up and do this thing, or I'm going to delete the calendar request. And I think there's both sides of that. There's the good girl who's doing what she told herself to do on her calendar, which is that conditional formatting that is bullshit that we've talked about in other episodes of doing what we should do, being right, being good. But at the same time, checking in with the energy ahead of time and finding alignment, saying, do I want to show up here and could I do this? But also I'm still very, very tired and don't give two shits.
Well, what if both situations can be right at the same time? Mm-hmm. What if you don't have the energy, but you have to show up, but then the outcome of that grants you the energy and flips the script?
Yeah. It's kind of like doing the thing, even though when you don't want to show up. It's the new habit. It's like going to the gym. You go to the gym because it's a habit that you want, that you've chosen to take on. So you go 3 times a week, but you don't always want to be there. You show up to the gym parking lot. You say, fuck it. I hate the gym. I don't want to be here, but you show up anyway. It's kind of that same thing. It's, I'm going to show up. And then after you showed up and did the thing, it's the energy of you showing up and the thing that actually pulls you out of where you were.
Right. So then it goes back into the original question, which is, do you still show up even if you feel like shit? And it feels like the answer is still yes. So then also it means the parenting that you do with your children is probably right. But it questions the idea of how pervasive is using mental health card as an excuse, right? That's the issue then, because it's,
well, and how
5-10 minutes ago I had a mental issue, right? But it's not like I avoided this
mental issue now,
right? Yeah. So it's I think of it as like Uno cards, right? You have a mental issue card, and it's like, well, it's almost like a reverse Uno reverse card, because you can be like, I don't want to do it, it's mental. So what in your opinion, where is that boundary? Because I think there is for sure a boundary, but somewhere close to the line, it's very easy to move the boundary very in your favor if you want to. So where is that line in your head where it gets uneasy, and then also the
line in our heads? I fully believe it comes with a higher level of EQ. I think when you have emotional intelligence, where you've understood how to operate, when to do it, it's a judgment call. It's the very nature of being human at its core. It's what differentiates us between AI technology. It's having that high EQ to say, I am reading the room. I am empathetic. I am trying to take in all of the information that I can about myself, about the people involved, about the situation. And I am using a judgment call to make this choice. I feel like that's what it is. And that's why parenting is so hard when you read these parenting books and they're like, well, you have to make a plan and stick to it every time. And the boundaries should always be there. And I used to think that boundaries were so rigid and it was black and white. And because it existed, it always had to. And then I kind of grew up emotionally. I think I raised the bar of my emotional intelligence. I started healing and reading and doing therapy and recovering, right? And kind of recovering as a human being. And I think over that time, I realized, holy shit, like boundaries are so fluid. And what happens one day for school doesn't need to happen the other day. And when you have that sense of knowing with the people in the room with empathy, and you feel, oh, they're sick, they don't feel well, but also they can still go through to school and they can still muster it up, then that's an emotional call. That's an EQ call. If you literally are looking at them and they're like, you're not going to make it through a 7-hour day, let them stay. It's fascinating to me how many people will try and put parenting into a box and say their rules are black and white. And the more rigid you are with children, the more they understand. While I agree that clear boundaries are great with children and they respect them and understand them, it also needs to move. It's a moving target because there's fluidity involved and there's room to be human. There's room to be human and keep them home one day and then say, we actually did this with our son. We kept him home one day, and by noon at lunchtime, I said, I think you just needed a slower morning, but you've been watching TV all morning. And I kind of feel like this is a time where you could go be social with your friends instead. Because he was like up, running around, doing projects, doing this. I said, I know you're sick. And I think I made the wrong judgment call with the whole day. So we gave you the morning to chill. And now you're going to go to school at lunch. And we did. We took him and he had a great afternoon. I think that it's a moving target. I think boundaries are great when they're displayed clearly, and then having the grace and the emotional intelligence to change them and move them day to day.
But don't you think parenting, you have a lot more control, right? When we think about in the world of business, you have way less control. You have so many factors that influence a wide range of people off a single decision, off a single unit of work, right?
Yeah.
So, I think parenting in this case, you are the driver's seat in the ecosystem, but in a business, there is usually not a single driver if there's a relationship of folks, right? And that's harder to do, to say, well, everything could be a judgment call. Because if a judgment call for you, if you're saying everything's a judgment call, then it's also a judgment call for the other drivers. And if they are also saying there's a judgment call, there's going to be conflict. So in the world of business, like, how does this apply? Because I work with so many folks where it can't be that fluid. It needs to be announced ahead of time of what those boundaries are, so people know, can you go where they stand, right? Whether it's a product offering, whether it's something in a contract, et cetera.
I disagree. Two things I want to make, and maybe I didn't hear you correctly and we actually agree. One, I don't think that parenting is control or a loss of control at all. I think there's no control in parenting. I don't think parenting should have any control. I think parenting should simply be a guide or a coach, somebody who's leading the bus, like you said, of people who can't drive yet, toward a common place. And there's input from other people, but they are leaders, they're guides, right? There's very little control. I think in a business, it's actually the same concept. I think the leaders of the business were appointed to lead with guiding and mentoring and using their judgment. But I also think that that's now a full team of drivers. Like you said, like, everybody's old enough to drive. So when you're leading a business, the leaders who are trying to incorporate the opinions and eventually making a decision and putting a flag in the sand, it has to be done, right? Like, just like with parenting, you have to put a line in the sand. I keep saying flag versus line, but you also have to make a decision and then guide them to that decision, but it's not controlling them to that decision, which is hard.
Hold on. A business, you do have to control, because it's your vision, it's the market, right? Market dictates everything, but aside from that,
business, you have to control with leadership, and at home and families, you have to guide with leadership. Is that what you're saying?
I can't relate too much with parenting, but I can say from a business end, I couldn't just give my customers that kind of free reign. Right? Otherwise, I would not be able to get new customers.
Right.
I would just be servicing the ones I have, because now I am bespoke. I am going to be customizing my appeal to the collective group of the visions of my customer base versus my own vision and where the market's vision is. Right?
Yeah.
I can't. And same with my team. My team has a different vision, right? They see it as, make every customer happy, make every feature available, make everything faster, smarter. That may not align with the market at all.
Right.
They're right in a lot of spots.
Right.
They're right in a lot of ways where I'm like, well, if we had more capital, sure, we can do more of these things. But you have to look at it from that capital could be spent just to grow the company a little bit better, and then reinvest it to do these other things, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of control that's required, that if you give other folks that power, you'll never get it. You'll just be stuck. You'll have one person with one opinion and the other. And then if you're really not the leader, you're thinking too much of them, then you'll just be stuck forever. You have to be, there's more red lines, to be honest, for a business. So I just don't see how you can collectively say everyone's, we're just the customers, the investors, the employees are just guiding. I think it's hard to say they're the coach. It's really, the leader is both the driver and the head coach at the same time. It's like the leader is the hard boundaries, the coach is the soft boundaries, but the hard boundary is always there.
Well, the coach is there to make sure that the people get behind the driver, right? The coach is there to encourage people to
Not necessarily. That's not necessary. The driver is to say, look, we're going in this direction. So the team should be ensuring that goes in the direction, regardless if the driver does it correctly or not.
Right.
Right. So like for my role, I see it as I do shit. I do the wrong thing all the time, but I tell the team the vision. I'm always going to go. Yeah. Sometimes I'm right, sometimes I'm wrong, but because they know the vision, that's the coaching piece. They can say, Matt, I think you're wrong here. Right? This is totally different, right? You can lead, if you lead without the ability to coach, you lead without a vision. You're just setting hard rules. People just follow in line. They don't care. They don't even know where you're going. They just listen.
Yeah.
If you explain the vision, that's fine, but you still need the leadership piece to say, to kind of have the back and forth. Like if you're wrong, okay, let people call out you're wrong. If I'm right and everyone else is wrong, prove it then. Here's where the vision is. And and then also ultimately the person who just controls the company has veto power. Just ultimately how it works, right? There's nothing around that, right? Versus I feel like I don't know parenting, but I feel like in a family, it's very much more collective. Mm-hmm. It's much more collective, and it is at least to my understanding, it is more guiding for everyone. Yeah. But in a business, I just don't think it's like that. If I let people run around, they're just going to waste money.
So what about in a business when there are partners that come in equal to the business owner and they also have a seat at making the decisions?
Why are they equal to the business owner? That's why that's the first thing I would say is like, why is anyone equal?
So that's the thing. Let's say that you have partners.
You can have partners, but they shouldn't be equal distribution. Otherwise, it's very hard to get things done. Name situations where you have co-CEOs and they grew to 1,000x market.
Yeah. Interesting. So even though there's C-suite and there's partners and there's co-founders, it's the owner of the business or the person put in charge is still the final say.
Here's a very common situation in the tech world. CTO often knows more than the CEO. The only thing a CTO can't do is sell. So what the CEO does is saying, I control the company, but you can basically just handle day to day. You know more than the COO. And the CEO electively says, I'm going to give you the power. I still technically have it on paper, but you have the power. You can override me in a lot of these decisions. Right? That means that person is now the single authority for a lot of things. It happens a lot. So you need that single authority because it's vision. It's everything. You need it. I just don't see a business where everyone's just split. All it does is just say, well, it's not my responsibility. It's your responsibility because it's all equal. So you can have equal success and also equal failure and equal procrastination. That's bullshit.
So do you think that a leader can bring on people equal and share the vision, that also becomes their vision?
If you have, so I was going to put down this into like a poker situation, or not even poker, let's put it in business then. If everyone has equal equity, you don't have authority on paper. You can only persuade. You can never enforce. So if everyone has a conflicting idea on how to grow a company, you're going nowhere. You're just California. You just turn into California, basically.
Too many hands in the pot.
How many chefs are in a kitchen? Head chefs.
One.
Do you when you cook, do you want another chef too? Not a sous chef, someone to say, your soup needs more salt. And they add more salt without your consent.
Right.
We'll say I was just making soup the other day. Say you spend 4 hours making a soup. It took a long time to get there, and they add salt at the last second. It's like, it didn't need salt, but they added it because they're the head chef too.
Yeah, the breakdown of communication when there is more than one in command is difficult.
Even if there's not, even say I disagree. Say you have two or three folks. I disagree with how you went this direction.
It's a standstill. You won't get anywhere.
Right.
Yeah.
But again, in the cooking analogy, well, you got something on the stove. It needs to finish eventually. Can't just leave it there.
Yeah.
Something has to get done.
Yep.
And a decision. Someone needs to make a decision. So what happens a lot in those situations? Someone will just say "fuck it," and then it deteriorates the decision. It deteriorates the relationship anyway.
And it deteriorates their vision, right? Because then essentially you're having, even if you share the same vision, if you have two decision makers, the one is going to, at some point, have a difference of opinion in that vision and where it goes. So it becomes.
That's why we see co-founders. You don't see most of the time. You don't see co-CEOs. Even in startups, you have a CEO, you have COO, you have tech company CTO.
Yeah.
And then someone usually, even if they're co-founder, they could be a VP of something because they just they don't want to be in that leadership situation that high. They want to be somewhere in the, not middle, but like enough to be close to the grass.
Yeah.
Because that's where they feel comfortable. That's what it means to form a great team. One leader, not more than one leader.
Right.
Right. And it doesn't mean like a VP is not a leader themselves. It's just what are you leading is what matters, right? A CEO is leading the vision. The VP, the level below is leading the critical components to make that vision work. The directors and manager are leading the execution to make those components work so that the whole vision works. Mm-hmm. Right? So everyone can be a leader, but you need to take what responsibility of leadership are you taking?
Right.
And you cannot co-manage that, right? It's just like go all the way lower, right? Say you have a restaurant, you have two managers working on the floor at the same exact time. One manager says, you got to do this X, Y, and Z. Another manager says you can do A, B, and C. Which one do you do first?
You don't know. Whichever one's easier for you, because that's just human form. You do the most approachable, easiest one.
So, some people can't think on that like that. They just get stressed out and anxiety. They're trying to make people happy. It's not that easy just to say, let's go do it either. So in all situations, you cannot have two leaders. It doesn't matter if you see people do it in the wild, just in practice and my own experience. If you want to get shit done as a company, and that means growing revenue, and if you have investors and eventually getting an ROI back to them because they're the ones who seeded you, you have to lead the ship. You have to be the captain. You have to, captain of the airplane, captain of the ship, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. One singular captain. You can have a 49% equity owner, but not 51. Not like you only have 51. That's it.
Yeah, that actually I think is why in family structures it's so challenging, because family structures should be collaborative and the parents should be.
They are by nature. The better. That's why you can't. I don't think they're comparable.
But a lot of people want that 51% and the rest is less. So there's somebody in the relationship that wears the pants, right? We say that all the time. And I think that's where the breakdown happens, because at work, in other places we show up, there's one chain of command, whereas at home, that is
But they're
shared.
not the same. It's just like me saying, I'm going to take my table tennis philosophy and apply it to my relationship. They're not the same.
Right.
You're not supposed to put the same things together.
I think a lot of people do, though. And I think that's where the disconnect happens of leading at home and decision-making and conflict resolution and all the skills that we learn at work don't necessarily apply at home.
No, hold on. This is where I disagree. I don't think they don't know the boundary. I think people do understand there's a life and a work boundary. I think what people are just bad at is just doing business. I think it just comes to the lack of understanding business. So if you lack understanding of it, you go to the next best alternative, which is how do you manage your life? And you hope that how you manage your life is how you manage a business.
See, I disagree. I think that there is no separation between work and life. And I think work-life balance, you are the same person, whole person. Who you are at home is who you are at work and vice versa. So how you show up in both places is going to be the same.
There's yes and no to that. I do agree that your personality seeps into the business. So thus your personality also seeps into your life.
Yeah.
But your life doesn't seep into the business. It's you as an individual that does. Because
I think it does, because the life seeping into the business is where culture is formed. It's where the leaders at the top form the culture.
No, I disagree. That's where you're the individual. Individuals bring culture, not the individual's family.
Well, but the individual and how they interact in their family is often how they interact in their business.
And I think the more you introduce it to the business, the less business it becomes.
Interesting.
What is the purpose of a business? To make a profit. And I say that is because, does your culture matter if you get laid off?
No.
So there's your line in the sand. It doesn't matter if you try to add culture to your business. All it does is add an artificial protection, thinking that your business is family, when at the end of the day, the business needs to make a profit. Even if you're not laid off, the business could be like, everyone gets laid off, including the CEO. Everyone's fucked.
That's a fine line for sure, because I know that there's a lot of businesses that thrive because of the culture seeps down to the customers, right? Which makes them a profit.
That's fine. The business itself can say, we're going to act as a family. Then you also go down as a family.
But then it's the same line of layoffs and saying, well, it's not personal, it's business.
No. There's two ways to look at it. Either you go down as a family, or you go down as a business, or you operate as a business and you only cut, you add and cut, right?
Yeah.
Because I know a lot of business owners that also treat their business like a family. It's not like they're wrong, but the sacrifice, there's a pro and con to everything. The exchange of that is, you're not going to fire anyone. If you're not going to fire anyone, and you're running a deficit, y'all are dead. It's fine. Y'all could die at the same time.
Yeah, one for all for one. Bye.
Right. Then that's and in that situation, the captain would be the sacrifice right. Just like how the captain stays on the ship, they're the last one to leave the ship. Right. If you know the whole thing's going to go down, you're going to make sure everyone gets paid first. You're going to stop paying yourself, and you say, hey, look, company's going to dissolve in 3 months. I'll make sure you guys get paid. Go find another job.
Yep.
That would be the equivalent of no one's getting laid off because the whole company dissolved. You only have two directions to go. That's a very black and white situation.
Yeah.
Right. You could also sell the company too, but it's the same thing. You're disbanding the family. Right. You sell the company. Right? I know that happens more often than dissolving. Well, I think I'm in a bubble, but I know a lot more folks that sell the really tight-knit company, 20 years, 30 years, business owner sells and retiring. The family's now disbanded.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
For 30 years, they acted like a tight family, Thanksgiving every year. And then next year, the owner says, I'm selling the business for 30 million, 35 million. I'm out. No more Thanksgivings.
You lose all your people.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So maybe the more closely aligned to businesses with a family, the more you can't sell it.
Yes. And that's running a tough business. It's no different than bringing on your spouse as another C-level executive, or it's no different than bringing your best friend as a key worker in your company. It's like, if you can't operate like a real business, if you have these moral obligations that you have to follow, you're running a harder business than people who don't have moral obligations.
Right.
Right. And if you're looking at a market, why are we in a business in the first place? To make money. That's the whole. If you don't want to make it a hobby, then make everyone volunteer if you want to be a family. It's much easier. Make a charity. It's much easier.
I'm resonating on that today. If you don't want it to make money, make it a hobby. Make it a charity.
I mean, it's really that simple. That's how, even though there's a lot of gray area, that is how I rationalize and bring kind of the black and white to it, because you have to go to a North Star somewhere. Right. So if your North Star is, we're going to run a family business, fine. You run it. You're staying as a family to the end. Perfect. Know plenty of businesses that work well with that.
Yep.
Would I recommend it? No. But for the people who can get it to work, I'm envious.
Fascinating. I'm thinking about that.
Yeah, I don't know how we pivoted from.
I know. I was thinking about that too. We totally pivoted. But you know what? I'm glad I showed up for this today. It has given me some life. Seriously, the conversation has been really needed. And I'm glad that we talked about it. My phone is doing something really weird right now. Okay. I think that that's your phone saying we got to call it. So thanks, Anne. This was a great conversation as usual. And hopefully you get better, and we'll see you next time. Sounds good. Thanks, Matt.